Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Through the Glass Columns. This time, we are finally going to be wrapping up Book 8. That's The Path of Daggers, and we will never, ever, ever look back. Do not speak of this book again. It's actually fine. I don't mind it that much. And I am, of course, your Tylor, and I am joined by Greg. Greg, say hello to the people.
Hello, people. And of course, you're going to make me rank all the books every time from now on. And I'm just not supposed to mention this one.
I mean, it's better if you don't, but yes, you are correct. We will need to come back to this one occasionally. Before we dive into our usual end of book recap things that we do, I just want to throw in a couple of quick reminders. First, we're going to take a couple week break after this episode. So make sure you are buying book 9, make sure you are ready to dive in, and be ready for an extra long first week. We are going to be doing the entire prologue in one go, and that means that if you need a little extra time, you've got a couple weeks. Use them to get ready for that first episode. The other thing I want to note, I highlighted at the end of the last episode, but it's worth noting right now there is a Kickstarter going on for the board game War of the Dragon, which is based on these books. Please back it. I'm going to back it. I desperately need this Kickstarter to happen. I'm counting on the 20 of you who probably listen to our show. All of you buy that board game. Other than that,
Tylor, what are the sign up bonuses if people back it?
oh my god, they are the most me thing you've ever heard. You get a Bella and you get a Hopper. It's the best. That's all I've got for that board game. Buy it, please. Other than that, I think it's time that we start talking about The Path of Daggers. And Greg, we usually just start this episode off with what were your impressions? What did you think of this book overall, now that you've had a chance to kind of step back from that final week?
Yeah, after having kind of sat with it for a week, I think where I've landed is I understand the reputation is this one is a real slog with only the smallest bit of payoff. And I don't disagree with that, but I would say that I think my delta on it is not as great as fandom seems to think it should be. That is, do I think it's so way worse than the one right in front of it? I don't. It's probably not quite as good, but it's kind of a minuscule step down from A Crown of Swords, not like a total aberration.
I think that's pretty much in line with my opinion, other than I like A Crown of Swords more than you do. I don't think The Path of Daggers is as bad as its reputation would suggest, but by the standards of the Wheel of Time, yeah, it's a pretty slow one. That being said, it's also a book that it's really easy to lose track of many of the things that happened. I was a little bit surprised as I was looking back on this book to remember that we had things like the explosion when we were escaping the Shan with Elaine, and also a good bit of time with Perrin and Fail figuring out the politics of their approach to Mazima. And some of these things, I think we think of this book as a slog just because it's easy to forget those chapters. And to some degree, we're kind of left with Rand's story at the end is fine, but I think there's some good moments in here. Was there anything that stood out to you other than the kind of main Rand plot that you're going to think of when you remember this book going forward, even though we won't speak of it?
Yes, when I remember it alone in my head. I think what I will remember most, by which I mean the thing I will say now and then never remember that I said, is that I think it is really surprising to me how much of this happens, quote unquote, off screen. And even that big explosion, it's it happens kind of between chapters, as I recall, right? Or we kind of sense it happening more than we see it happening exactly. And we just talked recently about the attempt on Rand's life, which yes, we saw, but it's not like we get a beat by beat description of in so many ways, right? It's these things happen and we deal with the effects of them more than we deal with the actual events.
Yeah, and I think that that's a little bit of Robert Jordan's MO at this point. We know he doesn't love to write big action sequences, but this book is probably more guilty of it than any other we've seen so far. As you're identifying, there's the one moment that happens on screen in chapter 3, and then after that, almost everything is something that's vaguely glimpsed out of the corner of someone's eye. And that's not the most satisfying, even though it's a very interesting way to approach a lot of these sequences. I'd love for any last thoughts you have on this book, and then for you to do the tradition, rank them.
No. I feel like I should add a lot more thoughts to stall. I do think that I get the sense that this is remembered as the preparation book, and that feels particularly relevant to the Egwene and then also the Elaine plot lines,
Yeah.
because it's like we build up to big moments, and Elaine does take the throne, but it's like an anticlimax, whereas Egwene, as we said last week, it's like, and here she is, so begins the Battle of Tar Valon, but it's not going to happen yet. So I think that means I'm a little more excited about Path of Daggers, kind of assuming that I think the
You're a
prologue
little
is
more
almost
excited about Winter's Heart.
oh, right, Winter's Heart. I think the like prologues are always kind of their own thing, but I assume the chapter 1 will get us right into the heart of some of these plot lines that need to be moved forward. But you turned off your webcam, but I assume that means you're just laughing at my naivete.
That just means my webcam is no longer working. I didn't know that happened, but yes, I am also laughing at your naivete. I think that this is a really good place to kind of say there's a lot of setup, and the question is, how soon does it happen, right? And your assumption is chapter 1, and boy, does Robert Jordan not usually do that, but I'd be excited to see kind of what comes next if I hadn't read this. I'm kind of jealous that you get to read all of these other books for the first time. Greg, where does this book fall in your rankings?
Ugh, the worst part of this is that I always enter the exercise with no memory of what I said last time, and then you immediately tell me like, "Oh, that's interesting. You moved this book this many slots and this book this many slots," and I'm like, "Oh, that is interesting. I wasn't aware." So I will do my best to remember as we look a little bit through this. All right. I think that Path of Daggers has to go fairly low on the list. Man, do I not remember what happens in each of these books. All right. So I remember number 4 is your favorite. And I think
Correct.
number 4 has been pretty high on my list and maybe climbing as we've had the ones after number 4, as I recall.
Yeah, that's largely correct.
So I don't think I should put it all the way up at number 1. I still have warm, fuzzy memories of The Great Hunt, although, again, as we get further away from it.
That is many people's favorite.
Okay. I don't know if it was my favorite last time, but we'll pretend that that's still pretty high. And I do know I also put number 1 pretty high compared to you. Let's go 2, 4, 1.
Okay.
And then let's follow that with 5 and then 6.
Totally reasonable. Yep.
And I'm going to put 8, 3, 7.
Okay.
But I don't know if I missed any, and I don't know how that compares to last time.
That sounds like approximately the correct number. I didn't count, but that sounds like about 8. I think that is largely in line with what a lot of people think, right? I think the Dragon Reborn book 3 is one of the books that's kind of like, there's not a whole lot going on there. Book 7 is a book that a lot of the community debates, is it a really good one or is it part of the slog? And so having that below the Path of Daggers is in no way an oddity. And the Path of Daggers being in your bottom 3 feels about right. It's in my bottom 4 of the entire series. So yeah, I think that sounds about right. The big move here for you, I think, is that the Eye of the World is slightly improving in your perspective the longer we go on, but that makes a lot of sense. Those books like 4, 5, 6, 7 all have a lot in common, and so as you start to look back, I think the Eye of the World and the Great Hunt feels like the books that stand out a little more, and so it makes sense that they might be higher in your rankings. As you're kind of thinking through
I would
this,
add to that, with the more separate the characters have been for a longer time, I think I get nostalgic for those 2 books where they spend a lot of the time together. Not every moment, but more time together.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And that's something that we don't get for a bit. Like, it's been a while. I'll walk through my rankings really quickly. You already know most of this. The Eye of the World is at number 15. I just do not care for that book. At number 13, I have The Great Hunt. That is my most unpopular opinion, but I don't care. It's just too much Rand for me. Then at number 12, just ahead of The Great Hunt, is where I place The Path of Daggers. It's a little slow at the beginning. Rand has a good plot, but I don't really get too much else out of the rest of that book. I then have The Dragon Reborn at number 10, slightly ahead of The Path of Daggers. I have The Fires of Heaven at 6, A Crown of Swords at 5, Lord of Chaos at 4, and The Shadow Rising is incredible. We go through the glass columns. It should be number 1 on everyone's list, but it's okay that it's not on yours. As you're kind of thinking through this, is there anything that you have in terms of like overall impressions of the series at this point that come to mind as you're kind of working through this? Where we're at versus where we've come? Anything that kind of emerged as you're discussing this? I'm now being your Wheel of Time therapist.
So I was just thinking as you were asking the question all the way back to our like preview for the series episode. So I believe episode 1, where I said like I kind of hoped this would be like an intergenerational, like long-term thing. And I think it's pretty clear that that's not going to be the case. I mean, we do have kind of 2 generations if we look at like Morgaze and then Elaine and you know, there are more parent generations. But it's something closer to like the Harry Potter universe where like the things that happened in that last generation matter, but we're not really there. And I don't think we're going to get down to like the children of these people in the next few books or anything like that. So yeah. I think at this point in the series, it just feels to me like I'm surprised now at the end of book 8. So definitively in the back half, right?
Yep.
That it just feels like not that much time is going on in the universe, right?
Can I ask you how much time you think has passed?
I would say from the first pages of Eye of the World, I would say at most 3 or 4 years.
We are at about 2 years is the marker. So the first book takes place in early spring. And so we are now just before spring in year 2. So we're almost at the 2-year mark at this point.
So even I'm thinking it's too short, only being 3 to 4 years, and it's half that. So it feels to me like in the end, and again, because we just said we're in the back half, that this may be at most like 5 years without, I am sure, some like outlier flashbacks or flash forwards.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about this series, is when you said it's going to be a multi-generational story, I was like, well, it's both a story about a lot of people from 3,000 years ago, and the first 8 books only take place over less than 2 years. So you were kind of both very right and very wrong. Now, I will note, you have been avoiding talking about your rankings. I think even more, you should be avoiding playing the game that we play every time. Do you have any thoughts before we dive into that? Because you can stall as long as you want.
Well, just on the subject of the time frame, I will also say I am very glad we're not skipping huge swaths. A good friend of ours told me that the Expanse books were really good. And I read them all, and spoiler for that book series, the I think it's the last 3 suddenly jump way forward, decades. And I was like, I felt so gypped because it had been more like this, where it's like every moment. And then it's like, yeah, and then like let's talk 20 years go down the line. And I think mentally I had a lot of trouble like picturing that much time had passed and so on. So as much as I just said I'm surprised it's so short, I don't want to suddenly, like, I will be disappointed if Winter's Heart is like 30 years after the fall of Tar-Valon or something like that. It's just not going to work as well for me.
I do think it's kind of funny that not Robert Jordan, George R.R. Martin almost did that with A Song of Ice and Fire. The original plan was to finish book 3 and then leap forward 5 years when Daenerys began her invasion of the Westlands, and he decided there was just too much backstory, so he'd tell that story. And I think that you're right to say Robert Jordan so far has avoided that impulse. He's like, let's just dive into all of it, and I prefer that choice. I'm with you.
Yeah.
You know what, Greg? It's time. There are 32 named characters in the Path of Daggers. Let's try to do this. The most challenging piece of this, I think, is getting the top 5 in the right order. I'm not going to hold you not remembering all the minor characters, but ordering is really tricky in this book. Who had the most POV? Worth noting, this is the most word count from an individual's perspective.
It's got to be Rand.
Shockingly, it's not. Rand is number 2 with 16.35% of the book. It's worth noting, Rand does not appear on screen until we are 60% of the way through this novel. He then dominates the second half of the book, but there is a long time with 0 Rand.
Elaine.
Elaine is correct. She is the entirety of the first 6 chapters of the book. She makes up 19.3%. So it's Elaine at number 1, Rand at number 2. Between the two of them, we're a bit over a third of the book being covered.
Egwene?
Egwene is number 3. Good call. 14.4%. She has, I think, like 5 or 6 straight chapters, all from her perspective.
Min?
Min is number 5. I did the exact same thing. I wanted to put her much higher. Min is 5% of the book. The easy thing to forget is that Min is not with Rand for the entirety of the campaign in Ibu Dar. And so she only starts to appear on screen in this book in the last 150 pages or so.
But Perrin shouldn't be that high.
Perrin is that high. Perrin is 14% of this book. Once again, he has like a 5 chapter in a row stretch, and that's the only Perrin we get, but it's a lot of Perrin. So between Elaine, Rand, Egwene, and Perrin, we are up to about 60% of the book. Throw in Min, and we're about 2/3 of the book. So from here, order doesn't matter. Let's see how many of the other names you can get.
Unremarkable Aes Sedai. I would say there are between 5 and 10.
If we're talking unremarkable Aes Sedai, Atheniel definitely qualifies. Galena may or may not qualify based on your perspective. We also have Tovien, who is only 0.9% of the book, and Elviarin, all the way down at number 27 with 0.3% of the book, and Sheriam with 0.1%. So your guess is about right, although there are a few other Aes Sedai who I would say are not unremarkable, and so I'm not giving them to you for free.
Cool. The current Amerlin seat.
Elida is absolutely correct. That is number 12 with 1.6% of the book.
And then we did some jumping around between all the factions at different times, or was that the last book?
That was mostly the last book.
Oh, well, and you said Sheriam, who would be one of those, and so on.
Yeah, that's correct. So the other Aes Sedai who you missed, assuming you're giving in on that particular category, Varen gets a significant portion of the prologue, enough that she is actually the number 7 POV in this book. We also have Cadsuan gets a pretty extensive POV at one point, and Siain is a name that we should remember. She is the one who is hunting the Black Aja in the tower.
And then there's some military men, right? There's the Seanchan.
There's some military men.
Yeah, right? So yes. Seanchan commanders, there's 2 or 3 of those.
There are 5 of them.
Oh.
We get Kenner Mirage, we get Furyk Kharid, we get Chulain, we get General Yulan, and Asid Bakun, I believe, are all members of the Seanchan army. At this point, you are missing number 6 on the list, and then we have to drop all the way down to number 14 for something else that you're missing. So you're doing very well. My only hint for number 6 is that it is a character whose name you definitely know, but you absolutely forgot that they got a single chapter entirely from their perspective.
Well, I don't know if this is the answer, but Fail had some towards the end, but it wasn't a full chapter.
I actually missed her on my count. She's number 8, but was not among the couple I was highlighting.
I don't think any Ashaman got POVs.
That is correct.
And what about the former Amerlin seat? Did she ever take?
No, not in this book.
And then we have a whole bunch of dark ones. I would say it has to be the biggest category.
Yeah, so if we're thinking Forsaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Grendel is at number 16, Moradin is at number 18, and Erengar is at number 30. Actually, fewer random Forsaken chapters than we typically get.
Mm. And I don't believe Nynaeve or Lan ever got POV.
That is correct.
And Matt sat the book out.
Yep.
And I don't think guy who's a man who can channel, whose name I'm blanking on in this moment.
That's Erengar. Oh
no,
the
main guy who's been around forever.
Oh, Taim or
no.
Logain.
Logain didn't get one.
Logain does not get a perspective. You're correct.
Even though he's very present. I don't think Avienda did.
Avienda is at number 6. She has an entire chapter from her perspective when they are escaping the Shan-Chan.
And then what about the woman who's at the head of Shido?
That is Savannah, number 14. You have now gotten the entire top half of this list.
Half? I think I'm cooked. I don't think I know any other names.
That's totally reasonable. Just to recap, 1 Elaine, 2 Rand, 3 Egwene, 4 Perrin, 5 Min, 6 Avienda, 7 Varen, 8 Fael, 9 Ciane, 10 Cadsuan, 11 Atheniel, 12 Elida, 13 Galena, 14 Savannah, and then let's just do the rest of these by name. We don't even need to number them. Kenner Mirage, Grendel, Tovien, Moradin, Furik Kareed, Asid Bakum, Morgaze is one that you missed. She does get some significant perspective. Varric David Hanlon is a villain who we should probably get used to his name. We also had Davram Bashir got a small bit of perspective. The Golem, the monster from the previous book, gets some POV. We also had an unnamed narrator in the final chapter, and all the others you got. That was actually one of your best work at this game.
Didn't feel that way, Tyler.
Well, the point of the game is to make you feel bad, so mission accomplished. At this point, our usual plan is to dive into all of the unfulfilled prophecies that we haven't yet talked about. I don't know whether we fulfilled any prophecies this book, but let's find out. In book 1, we have a few prophecies that are yet unfulfilled. These are all Min visions at this point. Min saw a vision of Tom with someone juggling fire, but it wasn't him. When she saw Perrin, there was a broken crown and a field of trees flowering. With Matt, there was an eye on a scale. And with Rand, there were 3 women standing over his funeral pyre. None of these I don't think are fulfilled, but any insights you have from this book?
I mean, we definitely have 3 women circling him now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Book 2, Min viewed that Elaine will be queen. I don't think we can technically check this off yet, but boy, is that coming true soon.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing we had here was a prophecy. Twice dawns the day when Rand's blood is shed, once for mourning, once for birth. So look for a day with 2 dawns. Cool. Book 3. We had a few Egwene dreams that haven't yet been fulfilled. The first is Rand confronting the Shan-Chan. I'm actually willing to mark that one off if you are.
Sure. That was his priority for a good chunk of this book.
A hawk fastening a collar on Perrin's neck. Matt dealing with the Shan-Chan. Matt putting an eye on a scale. And Perrin jumping off a cliff saying, "I must learn to fly before I reach the bottom."
No, I don't think any of those are fulfilled.
I was going to laugh at you for shaking your head on an audio-only podcast, but then you spoke up, so...
And then I was yawning, so I was trying to sneak in my comment before my yawn. Apologies, it's not the company, it's the content.
It's the company. I get it. Book 4, we do have a couple of Min viewings here. Gawain with Egwene at his feet, and he is either bowing to her or breaking her neck, but Min wasn't sure which would happen. We also had Logain with a halo of glory to come. That second one, I think we get some details, but definitely not fulfilled. Any thoughts here?
That sounds right.
Egwene also had a dream of Rand building a wall to keep Min and many others out, as well as Matt wrestling with a Shan-Chan woman who was tied to him. He just
Shaking my
sneezed.
head
I'm going to
because I
take
was
that
going
as
to
a
sneeze.
no.
I'm just falling apart as you read these.
The prophecies are breaking you. I understand. We're halfway through them. Don't worry. Book 5. In Egwene's dreams, she sees Rand sitting in a chair and the owner is angry it was taken. We have Perrin kissing Fael, and 2 banners, an eagle and a wolf, fly above them. There is also a tinker with a sword, and every time the tinker moves, a chill of doom goes through everything. We see Matt throwing dice with blood streaming down his face, and also Tom putting his hand in a fire and drawing out the blue stone that Moraine wears on her forehead.
I'm just remembering, as you mentioned Tom so often, he really didn't play a factor at all in this
Nope.
book, right? He's not even really mentioned, or if he is, it's very brief.
Yeah. I am willing to probably mark off Rand sitting in a chair and the owner is angry it was taken. That feels like the throne of Caemlyn that Rand took, and Elaine is the one who is furious about it. But I think all of the others, Perrin, we maybe get some details about the banners in this book, where he's now flying the Eagle of Manetheren and his own Red Wolf banner, but we don't yet have any indication of how the Tinker with a Sword is going to cause doom for him. So I'm going to say that prophecy is still unfulfilled. We also have a couple of Min's viewings. About Sheriam, she sees rays of silver and blue. About Edicina, she sees an Adam on her neck, and then the Adam is shattered. And with Gareth Brine, she sees Gareth and Siwan staying close to one another, and they live, but if they separate for too long, they will both die. Any thoughts here?
No.
I then have a fulfilled prophecy for you. Into the heart he thrusts his sword, into the heart to hold their hearts. Who draws it out shall follow after. What hand can grasp that fearful blade? This is a prophecy about Kalendor, and we now know that the one who draws it out and shall follow after is Nerishma, one of the Aes Sedai, who recovers the sword for Rand in this book.
Aes Sedai or Ashaman?
Ashaman. Oh, sorry if I said Aes Sedai.
Yep. Okay. See, I didn't fall asleep, listeners. I'm paying enough attention to catch that.
Nailed it. Book 6 had some Egwene dreams that are unfulfilled. Gawain kneeling towards Egwene. Gawain swinging a door shut, and if it closes, Egwene dies. Perrin running from a tinker. Matt speaking the old tongue while 2 ravens claw his shoulders. And Elaine, Min, and Avienda in a circle around Rand, each laying a hand on him.
I mean, again, not literally fulfilled, but it's very clear those are the 3 women, seemingly.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We then have some Min's viewings from this book. Mylane will have twin daughters. Hasn't happened yet. Twice, if Perrin is not there, something terrible will happen to Rand. And Perrin has found his falcon, but she might kill him when the hawk appears. We also have that Ericome, Maricon, and Guayam die in battle. You don't remember who any of those people are, but they died in this book, so I'm marking that one fulfilled. And also, Berylane will fall in love with a man in white.
When is Perrin putting on white? But go on.
Book 7. Now we have no fulfilled prophecies, so I have more to say. Elida had a foretelling that the White Tower will be whole except for a remnant cast out and scorned, whole and stronger than ever. Rand will face the Amerlin and know her anger, the Black Tower will be rent in blood and fire, and sisters will walk its grounds. The one part of this that I think is now fulfilled is that sisters are walking the grounds of the Black Tower, they've just been captured and bonded, which is not what Elaine thought that would look like.
Makes sense.
Egwene had some dreams. Gawain walking in his bare feet, cutting his feet on shards on the ground. Egwene below the headsman's axe and someone running to stop it. And Matt snatching a firework from the sky, and when he does, Egwene is filled with dread.
Not in this book.
Correct. We also have some Min visions. Blood in Taim's past and his future. Rand and another man touch and merge. One of them lives and one of them dies. Alana, Bera, Phaeldrin, Raphella, and Marana are all in Rand's hands. Hareen will be punished for her accord with Rand, but will eventually be mistress of ships. Darlin wearing a king's crown. David Hanlon is not to be trusted. Rand will fail without a woman who is dead. And Kadsuan is going to teach Rand and also the Ashaman something, but they will not like learning it.
All to be fulfilled later, I guess, except that probably the woman who Rand can't get in touch with could be Lanfear or Moraine, but we're unfulfilled until we're sure which.
I think the only other one that I would mark as at least partially fulfilled is the prophecy about the Aes Sedai in Rand's hands. Previously, Alana was obviously bonded and swore to him. I believe also Bera and Phaedron had sworn to him. If I'm recalling this correctly, Rafella and Marana actually had not sworn to him until this book. And so I believe now all of the women from that vision are sworn to him and thus potentially in his hands. I'm going to cross that one off just so we have one fewer prophecy to talk about in future books.
Sounds good.
We have now reached this book, Greg. It's time for the Path of Daggers prophecies, of which there are only a few. First, we have some Egwene dreams. Rand wearing masks over and over until one of the masks becomes his face. Perrin and a tinker hacking through brambles, unaware that just ahead of them is a cliff they may fall off, and Mat weighing 2 Aes Sedai on a scale, and the decision he makes will have dire consequences for the world. That headshake is correct. We finally have some Min viewings. Darlin will marry Caroline and then die in bed. You don't remember who either of those people are. The Tower Aes Sedai will serve Rand in their own way. Beldine will bond an Ashaman. Serene will have a torrid love affair. Nisun will build a library. And Cerelia will also serve Rand.
I mean, so fresh, but like Min's visions are seemingly getting more frequent and lower stakes, right? These just feel like little bitty insights into each of these wayside characters.
Yeah, I will say, if we're talking about a book being the slog, the fact that it doesn't have a single interesting prophecy in it makes it a slog even for people who are just here for the hints of what's yet to come. As we now have just a deluge of images in front of you, is there anything that stands out overall about these prophecies, or do you have any theories about what might be coming in future books based on the prophecies? Because this is my transition to the final point I have in my notes for every one of these recaps. Hey, Greg, what's coming next?
So I would say the two big categories of unfulfilled, like actually about characters we care about, clearly the resolution of whatever happens at the tower, right? The kind of what the Aes Sedai become and if they re-emerge and then how they relate to Rand within that. There weren't as many left about Egwene as I expected, but not zero either.
Most of the ones about Egwene weirdly also had Gawain in them.
Right, and he's not a thing in this book. Finally, my prophecy came through. And then I would say it stood out to me that there were so many that involved Mat, perhaps particularly because he's been absent for a book, but it feels to me like there's some big events coming with scales and eyes and other parts. I mean, we still have the woman, right? We're not entirely sure what that's going to be. And so
fireworks.
Fireworks. And so all of that feels like we still have 7 books or 6 books in a prequel, so I think we probably need to get back to Mat pretty quickly. And I will transition on that point. I don't think we've ever had a character sit out 2 books, so I think we're going to get some Mat content, and I do think we're not going to be left waiting for the Battle of Tarvalon or the Siege of Tarvalon, whatever form it takes. But I'm expecting less of a siege because of the we can just jump in and grab stuff. Like, they have food locked in there. Let's just run in and grab all the apples or whatever and get out of that. So that would be, I think that to me is where the biggest developments will have. I'm
laughing so hard at your Battle of Tarvalon being, we'll steal some apples. Please continue.
I also would expect that Rand's primary plot point would be figuring out what's going on with Elaine. I think that duo is going to be much more important than Min Rand has been for the last couple books, and figuring out what their relationship is. And I'm kind of evenly split about if it will be happily ever after or some big conflict. But given how many books are left, probably a little conflict.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I guess what I'm wondering is we are now by book just past the halfway point, right? We have read 8 of the 15 books. So what are you kind of anticipating in terms of the overall arc of this story? Do you think we've still got a couple more kind of like set it up kind of books? Are you expecting something big and flashy in the next one? What's your kind of take on what Winter's Heart will bring in terms of slog versus explosion?
Well, and I'm cheating a little, only that my copy of Winter's Heart is flipped over and I'm just looking at the titles of what's still to come. And it's not like there's a title that's like the final battle or, the glorious climax of our story. But I suspect that we're going to have, it could easily be 1 or 2 more books that are kind of a little bit more treading water. And then I think, I'm guessing kind of 4, like, let's just check off big things every book and then finish it up. Yeah. That might be ambitious. It could be 2 books that check everything off, but it feels to me like we're probably still in a holding pattern. Our plane hasn't been cleared for landing. There's no gate free, so we're just circling the airport a little more.
It is worth noting at this point, from Robert Jordan's perspective, after he published book 11, he explicitly stated there will only be 1 more book. I don't care if it has to be 3,000 pages. He said there will only be 1 more book. And then Brandon Sanderson came in and was like, no, this is 3 books. So when you're thinking about the arc of the series, do be aware it's not quite as long from the perspective of the person who was planning it as what we're thinking, right? You're saying it's a 4-book ending, and then you're like, maybe it's only 2. Those are actually the same prediction from Robert Jordan's perspective.
That's pretty cool, and it makes me sad because 12 is such an important number in epic, right? 12 books often makes up, a lot of different epic poems and so on. So 14 is nothing. 14 is not a magic number, so...
I don't know what you're talking about, Greg. There are 7 seals of the Dark One's prison and 7 Ajas, and there have been references to 7 different ages, so 14 is a pretty badass number for this series to have.
Sure, but you just said 21 things.
So we're going to take a little bit of a break after this. We're going to have a couple of weeks off. I'm going to Japan, and I don't want to have to think about this podcast for a couple of weeks. Greg is going to not be teaching for a couple of weeks and doesn't want to think about this podcast for a couple of weeks. And like I said, we've got a big chapter coming up after we come back. The prologue of Winter's Heart is maybe not the longest chapter we've done in a single go, but it's gotta be close. So give yourself a little bit of extra time, and we will be jumping back into Winter's Heart in just a couple weeks. Greg, any last thoughts? And then go ahead and say the name of our podcast.
I think I confirmed this last episode, but it's 68 pages in my mass market paperback edition of the book. So that is pretty long, but, we could have broken it up, but I think we've set the precedent in the past that prologues, we just want to dive in and get the whole thing done, even if we end up breaking up by POVs or some such when we talk about it. So take some rest. We will miss you, but we promise we'll be here when you get back. And also, so many of you are just working behind that you'll never know. We'll just take a couple weeks off, and then you'll be that much closer to the top of the show. And that's the magic, my friends. Every time you travel through the glass columns.